Now, last night I put out a video giving my overall thoughts on the third episode of The Acolyte, saying how it certainly wasn't a good episode, that it was sort of vague and sloppily made overall, but that despite what some were saying about it going into the episode, some that had seen it beforehand, that it wasn't the most lore-breaking thing ever. Yes, it did have its issues in that department, or potentially did, but it was so vague in certain places, or with what was really happening or had happened, that it's hard to say just how much or little it actually did break the lore, or rewrote the Force, or anything like that. But anyway, I want to dive a little deeper into the episode with this video, into the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. And I'm going to do that in a bit of a different way than I normally do. I'm just going to start watching the episode again, and I'm going to pause it at certain points whenever I feel there's something to comment on, and kind of dig into it or dissect it that way. We'll call this a Let's Watch Some Star Wars video, and if people like the format, I can certainly do more of it. And if you're maybe someone who didn't watch the episode, or isn't going to watch the episode, has no plans on ever watching it, I will try to sort of describe what is going on a bit before just commenting on it and assuming you have seen it. But anyway, let's waste no more time on preamble, and let's fire up the episode and dive right into what is basically the shallow end of a pool. Alright, so the episode opens up 16 years in the past, or 16 years in the past relative from where the show takes place, 100 years before the prequels. And we see OSHA and May, the two twins, at the Bunta tree, which is the tree that they used to poison the Jedi in the previous episode. The bark is, I guess, poisonous if you eat it or whatever. Anyway, we see OSHA sort of using the Force to force freeze this butterfly bird-like creature, and then she lets it go. May comes in and does the same thing, and OSHA gets mad that she does stuff like that all the time. I don't know if this is intentionally trying to set up OSHA as a hypocrite of some degree. I don't know why she is mad that when she does it, it's fine, then May does it and it's not. I don't know. Also here, I have seen a lot of people kind of complain how these two twins do not look identical, and then later on, May and OSHA will look identical because they're played by the same actress then and not the same actress here. That's one of those things, I'm just going to let it slide. I'm not going to be that upset about it. It's fine. I mean, I don't think these were the best child actors I've ever seen in my entire life. I think the acting overall was kind of wooden in the episode, and that certainly didn't help a kind of not great story. But anyway, moving on, the two kids have this little rhyme about how you're me and I'm you, and one makes two or two make one, whatever it was. I'm butchering it, but it's a cute little rhyme that seems to tie into what the witches believe about the Force. I think it'll probably be significant later. It's going to be part of probably whatever the big twist or reveal is in the series at some point. We then learn that the twins are not supposed to be outside the walls of the fortress because apparently there might be Jedi spying on them, which I guess that makes sense because they have been chased to this planet for reasons. We don't really know exactly what they have done to be sort of persecuted by the Republic and the Jedi, but the mother of the twins, the one who actually gave birth to them, and more on all that in just a little bit, but she finds them outside the wall and kind of scolds them and says there will be consequences because somebody might see them. And of course, it turns out that the Jedi are here, and Sol, when he's much younger, sees them. And I don't know. I don't know why the Jedi would be like so obsessed with these two twins. Is it because they are looking for more people to train? Is it because there's some sort of law about not training the children that these witches have to abide by? I don't know. Very confusing stuff. As I was saying before, a lot of things in this episode are very vague, and you really don't know why things are the way they are. Next, we see the two mothers who, yes, they clearly are in love with each other and all of that. While we see them debating how to raise the twins, one thinks a firm hand is needed. The other says that OSHA is just testing her boundaries and it's kind of normal childish behavior. We also hear that the Jedi are on the planet for reasons. They're just here. I don't know if they are intentionally looking or kind of keeping an eye on the witches, or if they are here for another reason entirely. But that is why they were so worried about the children being outside the wall, because the Jedi might see them. And of course, as I mentioned before, the Jedi did, and it will cause problems. But we really don't know why the Jedi are here. The Jedi don't explain it either. They are just here, I guess, to keep an eye on the witches. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. We then get this scene where Mother Anastasia, that is the leader of the witches, and the mother of the twins, or one of the mothers, the one who actually created them. Again, more on that soon. But she talks about how the witches, see the Force as a thread and that they kind of see that there is strength in numbers. She criticizes the Jedi that they see it as a Force, and she says a Force, not the Force. That they even see it as a power they can wield. And she then goes on to use it as a power to make an example because she tries to do a Force push against one of the other witches. And talks about how there is like strength in numbers, that you can use the Force better if you have more people. You can treat it like a stronger power. But then the two witches try to block her, or two of them try to block her, and they still can't. She still overpowers them anyway. I really don't know what the point of all that was, or how that makes any sense. There is strength in numbers, except for when there isn't strength in numbers, I guess. That said, again, she describes the Force as a thread that you can pull on to kind of create your own destiny, and that does, to a degree, make sense with what George Lucas has said, that everybody has a destiny and they can choose to follow it or not.
Controls individuals, yet we have free will. We have a destiny if we want to follow it.
I don't know if that is what she's kind of referring to or kind of implying here about what Lucas has said before. But it does kind of make sense that you can, say, tug on the Force and change things. That is what the Sith essentially do, right? They are so selfish that they change the destiny of others by using the Force in a negative way. So it's kind of actually implying that they are dark side, that they will twist fate, or they will pull on the threads of fate to create their own fate. They will defy the Force. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. There is then this really quick scene or moment at the end of that previous scene I was just talking about that I missed or kind of overlooked the first time, which is that the mother, Cora, the one who gave birth to the twins, she goes into the reactor room as if she senses something. She looks up as if someone has been in there and maybe tampered with something. Again, I missed this completely the first time, I'll be honest. And later on, this reactor is going to explode and caused a big issue, so are we supposed to now believe the Jedi have come in here and sabotaged it, or what? Moving right along, there's then this scene with Mother Anastasia, OSHA, and May, where OSHA is basically saying she doesn't want to be a witch, she wants a different life, which, I think that's great, I think that's fine, that is all well and good. I think the problem here is we don't really know why. Now, you could just say, well, she's a kid, she wants to explore the galaxy, that's fine. But I think if we had a little more here, if we knew a little bit more about why OSHA just doesn't like this life, why she doesn't want to be a witch, I think this would work a hell of a lot better. One of the big weaknesses of this episode is the fact that it just kind of happens. She just kind of wants things. Everybody just kind of wants things. Things happen and nothing ever really gets explained as to why. We then get this very brief scene where we see a few of the witches sort of meditating or gathered around this hole in the mountain, and I'm going to assume this is a dark side hole or a dark side cave like we have seen before. I think this is heavily implying that yes, these are dark side users, and in that previous scene, Mother Anastasia even talks about how we are not welcome in the galaxy because we are witches, and it's probably because you use the dark side. Next up, we have a scene where the twins are being prepared for the ascension ceremony, and during it, OSHA is drawing something in a little booklet, and she's drawing it like 2 feet away from May, and she doesn't want May to see it and gets all upset when she tries to look at it, despite the fact you're drawing it right in front of her. We will later learn it is a symbol of the Jedi Order, and how she knows what that is, and how she knows anything good or positive about the Jedi, I don't know. You would think the witches would certainly not paint the Jedi in a very good light when they talk about them, and that she would have a very negative impression of them, but despite that, she seems to have a positive one. She wants to be one even. And here they do try to explain why OSHA wants to leave, because she doesn't really want to be like her sister. She doesn't want to be thought of as one person. She wants to be her own individual. And I suppose that is a decent reasoning. But again, a lot of the motivation behind why she wants to be a Jedi, why she knows about them, all that is sort of just missing here. And we're just supposed to assume that she wants to get away from May to be her own person, and that's that. Maybe that's good enough for you, maybe it's not. Alright, we then have a scene where they start by performing a little ritual or a little dance at the dark side hole in the ground that I just talked about. And Mother Anastasia then says how they haven't had this ritual, the ascension ritual, which they're going to have for the twins. They haven't had it in a long time because they have been hunted down to near extinction, because of their unnatural and dark use of the Force, essentially. I've seen some people try and sort of conflate this with them being hunted down because they are a group of lesbian witches and the Republic or somebody doesn't approve of that, or the Jedi doesn't approve of that. but nowhere is that really said at all. It is pretty expressly said that the reason why they are being hunted is because they use the dark side or they do things that are considered unnatural by others. I don't know, maybe that's where the show is trying to go with it. Maybe it is purposely wanting you to conflate the two or trying to make a point about something. Again, I don't know. I don't necessarily see it, and I don't know why it would work in Star Wars when we've never seen discrimination of that nature before. We've never seen anybody care about races and genders and species and anything like that. The only kind of discrimination we really see is against droids. And yes, there is some xenophobia in the Empire as well. We then get this really kind of cringe singing about the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. We even see kind of the moon above being affected by whatever they are doing, about the ascension that May and OSHA are about to go through. And May does go through the ascension. She wants to stay with her mothers, with the witches. While OSHA does not, you can clearly see it, and the mother knows, I think. Mother Anastasia knows that OSHA doesn't want to do this, but she's putting her through it anyway, kind of forcing her beliefs upon her child, which, I don't know, maybe that's supposed to be a parallel to the Jedi, who many believe that they force their beliefs on children as well. Anyway, OSHA says yes, but right when she does, before she can get her little scar on her forehead or a little whatever on her forehead, like May did, the Jedi show up. And they have basically come in peace. They have come because they have seen children, and they are afraid that these children are being trained with the Force because there is some sort of Republic law against that. I don't know if it is against these particular witches that they cannot train children in the ways of the Force, or if we're supposed to believe that no one but the Jedi is allowed to train children in the ways of the Force, which is something I don't believe the Jedi would even enforce, no pun intended. I don't think the Jedi are out there policing who can and cannot use the Force, which is a big part of what this episode is trying to say. That it's not about good or bad, it's about power and who gets to wield it. That kind of infamous line from the trailer is uttered in this episode, and in context it does make sense from their point of view. If the Republic has passed some sort of law that they are not able or allowed to train their children in their ways, in their religious beliefs, you could say, you could certainly understand why they are upset about that. Anyway, when the Jedi showed up kind of out of the blue and unexpected, the witches tried to hide the children like behind them or in the crowd, and OSHA is just kind of creeping forward because she wants to see the Jedi. Again, she has this kind of fascination with them for reasons, and she is creeping forward in the crowd, and none of the other witches are really trying to stop them. Eventually, Kelnaka, the Wookiee, sees her. They get called out, or Master Indara tells them to come on out so that we can see them. And immediately, and I don't mean this in any sort of weird way, but immediately Sol is kind of taken by OSHA, interested in her, and even shows her his lightsaber and all that, which made it sound worse. Anyway, the witches, or one of the witches, cries out that they're here to take our children, and Sol responds by saying that we don't do that, we don't take children, which the Jedi do not do. They do not kidnap children or come steal them in the night or whatever some people believe. But this is where it then gets a little muddled or strange, because Sol kind of asks OSHA if she would like to be a Jedi, and OSHA says, well, yeah, I'd like to be tested and all that. And then Mother Anastasia kind of possesses or uses some dark side magic on Torben, and his eyes go dark and he kind of goes into a trance or whatever. Then, almost in a contradiction to what Sol had said moments ago, Master Indara says that we have the right to test your children to see if they have the potential to be a Jedi, which doesn't really jive very well with what Sol just said. If they don't take children, if they need a parental permission or consent to take a child to be trained as a Jedi, well then Mother Anastasia simply asking them to leave should be all it takes for them to leave. And yet they don't. Again, Indara makes this claim that we have the right given to us by the Republic to test your children, but if you don't want them to be Jedi, what does it matter if we test them or not? Is this because we want to keep track of a very Force-sensitive or a child who has a lot of potential with the Force? Is that what we are implying here? That the Jedi are, again, kind of policing the Force, keeping tabs on very strong individuals who are not in the Jedi Order? I don't know. It's a very weird and confusing sort of scene that contradicts itself, I think. I mean, Indara even says afterwards, with your permission, of course, which I don't understand. You're saying we have the right to do this, but then I have to ask your permission. Again, it just all doesn't make a lot of sense. Mother Anastasia then lets Torben go, and I do wonder if this will have anything to do with why he apparently will do something so bad that he will take his own life later on, as we saw in the previous episode. Does he have a sort of overreaction and he kills a bunch of them because he got possessed? Or was that why she possessed him in the first place, to cause an overreaction so they could be justified in retaliating? I don't know. We don't have a lot of information. But it does feel like that this will have something to do with why Torben will do something so horrible that he feels like he needs to take his own life to atone for it. Either way, for reasons I do not entirely understand, Mother Anastasia says that she will allow OSHA to take the test tomorrow, and then Sol demands it's both twins, that is May too. I don't know why. May seems to have zero interest in being a Jedi, so why are you forcing that upon her? And I don't think Mother Anastasia is going to let you take May if she doesn't want to go. I don't know why she's even entertaining the idea that OSHA should make this decision. It's all very strange. Again, if Mother Anastasia thinks the Jedi are bad, that they use the Force wrong, that they are persecuted by them, why would you ever let your daughter go when apparently all you have to say is no and the Jedi will go away? Even though at the same time they're saying they have the right to be there, that the Jedi are saying they have the right to be there with your permission, of course. Again, I can't make sense of this. Even into the next scene, this kind of confusion continues. You start by having Mother Coral trying to rally the troops, essentially saying we should strike back against the Jedi, we should fight them, we should fight for our children. And Mother Anastasia is like, no, we will let them test the kids. OSHA even wants to do this. And Mother Coral says this is a bad idea and that we shouldn't let them do it. And another one of the witches is like, we don't have a choice. But again, you do have a choice. And yeah, I get it. You don't really want to anger or provoke the Jedi. If you just let them test them and then say, okay, you can go now, things are probably going to go a lot smoother all around. But really, in all reality, they should only have to say, you can't take our children, and the Jedi should respect that and go. We then have Mother Coral saying that she brought them into the world, so she should have a say in this. And then Mother Anastasia counters by saying, I created them. And Mother Coral responds, and what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them, implying she has done some sort of dark magic to do it, which is not something that I really like in concept here. I just don't think a random coven of witches or one witch would have the power to create life. This is something that Darth Plagueis was in pursuit of, and even he didn't exactly pull it off. He tampered with the Force, and kind of in retaliation, the Force created Anakin, which is something I have always really enjoyed. I thought is perfect that here you have a Sith trying to discover some of the secrets to life itself, to eternal life, and in response, the Force creates that which will ultimately destroy the Sith. It brings about the Chosen One. I think it is very fitting that the Sith unintentionally destroy themselves by creating that which will destroy them. And so to have it all willy-nilly where some coven of witches knows the secret to creating life, I don't like it. Maybe you do, maybe you're fine with it, that's up to you. But personally, I just don't like this idea. I don't think we should tread into this territory. I don't know the rest of the story yet, but I don't think we needed to do that. I just don't think we needed to do something like that with the twins. They could have just been normal Force-sensitive children, or you could go the Rise of Skywalker route and make them some sort of dyad. They could have had their own unique bond. I just don't think they needed to be created kind of Anakin style. We didn't need to go down that road. And yes, there could be other explanations here. It could be that Mother Anastasia created them some other way and that Mother Coral is not the wiser. She could have somehow, I don't know, I don't want to go crazy, weird theory time, but she could have artificially inseminated her and claimed it was some sort of manipulation of the Force, that she created life in order for these children to be put on a pedestal, in order for them to be the future of the Coven, that they would be the future because they are the gift from the Force or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how deep into this or how much of an explanation for this we're even going to get from the show. Something tells me we are not going to get much of an explanation at all, that this could literally be all we will get in regards to how they were made. We then have the very old witch, the very wise one, apparently saying that this is a matter of pass or fail, that if the twins fail the test, the Jedi won't want them. So if we tell them to fail the test, it'll be all good. But again, we have this weird conundrum here that the Jedi are not going to just take the twins if the mothers say no. I don't know why we are kind of implying this. Now, it could be that since they broke the law, that they were teaching them the ways of the Force, that will justify the Jedi. Not that I think it should justify the Jedi, but that will sort of justify them, or they believe it will justify them in taking the twins. I don't know, it's just all presented in a very strange way. It is then the next day, and the twins get taken to the Jedi ship in order to get their test. But before that happens, we see OSHA kind of get distracted by Kelnaka, the Wookiee, working on a speeder. This is, I guess, supposed to be a little nod to the fact that she will be a mech later, that she likes to fix things. Where have I heard something like that before? Though on a side note, can we get Wookiees that don't sound like Chewbacca all the time, please? Pretty much every Wookiee we ever see, or should I say hear in Star Wars, always sounds like Chewbacca. Like they just take stock audio clips from the original trilogy from Chewbacca and just put it on every Wookiee we see. I don't know why every Wookiee has to sound identical. But anyway, a little tangent or rant over. This is when the episode did something I actually thought was pretty clever. This I actually liked. OSHA goes ahead and takes the test, and she is intentionally going to try to fail it because of what May has asked her to do and what the mothers have asked her to do. So she's trying to fail it. She's trying to fail the Phantom Menace test where you have to say what is on the screen that you can't see, and she is intentionally giving wrong answers, and every time she does, Saul tells her she is correct, which of course confuses her, and eventually she gets frustrated and says, I know I was wrong, and he catches her and says, well, if you knew we were wrong, then you knew what was actually on the screen, and it becomes this conversation about, do you want to be a Jedi? What do you actually want to do? And she says, yeah, I want to be a Jedi. In the following scene, we then see that May is very upset about all this, that OSHA wants to go off and see the galaxy and not be a witch and not be like her sister or not be stuck attached to her sister in a manner of speaking, that the two should be two, that they shouldn't be one. And after a little private conversation, after May gets dragged away, Mother Anastasia basically says, we will consider what you want when we discuss all of this. We will consider letting you go be a Jedi if that's what you want to do. And again, I really don't get this too much. If you really think the Jedi are that bad, if they are the cause of you being hunted down and put on this moon or having to find this moon or whatever, why are you going to let your daughter that you created somehow, some way, why are you going to let her go off with the Jedi? Especially if, as was said before, you have created her in some sort of dark way that the Jedi may discover, and then they will come back for you and kill all of you. Wouldn't it make more sense to disappoint the child here in the moment and tell her you can't go and tell the Jedi you can't take the child and then to leave? And then if the Jedi are going to be real Jedi, then they should just go and that should be the end of it, right? The following scene is then OSHA kind of packing up, ready to go, and May comes and confronts her. And May is like, I'm not going to let you go. And OSHA's like, well, how are you going to stop me? And this is where it gets a little wacky. But OSHA's like, well, I'll just kill you. And sure, sometimes kids can be a bit hyperbolic, but that is a bit much, I think. I don't know, that was really strange. She then takes OSHA's book and runs out and closes the door and sees that OSHA has drawn the Jedi symbol. Again, don't know how she knows about that symbol, but whatever, I'll let that slide here. She then sets the book on fire, and somehow setting the book on fire sets the stone temple on fire, or stone fortress, whatever you want to call it. And look, you gotta let some things slide from time to time in stories, and yes, Star Wars does take some liberties with how things really work or work in the real world. But, like, I don't know how the stone is on fire. I don't know how a big fire comes out of a stone palace or how a stone fortress is set ablaze. But whatever, I'll try to let that go for now. The rest of the episode, then, we very deliberately see only from OSHA's perspective. She manages to find a little hole in the wall or a little maintenance hatch. I don't know what the hell it was. She crawls into it, and it takes her to the reactor room where we see where she sees an explosion. And it seems like this explosion, if you look at the scene, I'll put it on your screen now, it seems like the blast has probably killed a lot of the witches. Now, why the reactor exploded, I don't know. We saw, again, that really brief scene earlier where Mother Coral goes in there and seems like she senses something or wonders if someone was in there tampering with something. So is this supposed to be the Jedi did something that maybe caused a bigger explosion than they expected? It was meant to be a distraction where they were going to come in and extract the children or extract OSHA, but the explosion was way bigger and it killed everybody, and that's why Torben is so guilty. I don't know. Either way, just as the scaffolding or whatever they're on is falling and collapsing, both May and OSHA fall at the same time, and that is when Sol shows up and he kind of has to make a decision. Do I save OSHA? Do I save May? And of course he saves OSHA and lets May fall to her supposed death, but of course she doesn't die. He then whisks her away and past all the bodies of the witches, which There's no fire here. I don't think that is what killed them. From what we can tell, I don't see a whole lot of lightsaber slashes or stabs. Not that that kills people anyway in Star Wars these days. But I don't see that either. It seems like the explosion is what killed them, the shockwave or debris or whatever. I don't know why they were all clustered up like that, but well, just let that slide too for now. Anyway, it seems like the explosion caused by somebody, or maybe just it was a faulty reactor. It was kind of sparking before. Maybe that is what happened. It just happened to blow up at just the right moment. Maybe OSHA, or May, I should say, maybe she tampered with it and caused the explosion. I don't know. Again, we only see things from OSHA's perspective here, and something tells me to go along with the whole how this is based off of Rashomon, an old Kurosawa film that showed different perspectives, and how when you see things from different perspectives, the truth can be twisted from their point of view. I think that is what we're going to get here. We're going to see this scene again from other angles, other perspectives, and it'll maybe make more sense, maybe make less sense. I don't know. We are then on the Jedi ship, and we see that OSHA is like unconscious for some reason. Now, last we saw her, she was fine. Nothing really happened to her. Maybe it's smoke inhalation. I don't know what it is. It does seem a little strange that she is suddenly unconscious, and she wakes up and she's like, "Where am I?" And well, so I was like, "We're going to Coruscant. You're going to be a Jedi. Everything's great, kid. Even though your family, your mothers all were killed and your sister is dead." We also see in the background of this, Torben seems like it's not very clear. We don't have a focus on it or anything, but it seems like his face is kind of scarred up or burned, perhaps. He was probably caught in the explosion. I had initially assumed maybe there's some kind of fight between him and the witches, but I don't think that is the case. I think the Jedi were already in there. I think they were attempting to extract OSHA, and something happened. I don't know if they caused it intentionally, accidentally, or whatever. But clearly, Torben is going to think he did something that got all the witches killed, and he takes his own life later on. The episode then ends with May at the Bunta tree, and it seems to confirm she is 100% alive, despite some theories out there that maybe she is dead, or there is some kind of big twist coming, that OSHA has split personality disorder now, or she somehow can take on the identity of OSHA at time, or May at times, or I'm getting myself confused here. But anyway, this seems to say that yes, May did indeed survive, unless this is her Force ghost and we're really just going to destroy the lore forever. I don't think that's the case. I think, yes, May survives. She's eventually going to be found by the Sith and become an Acolyte and want revenge. And at some point we will see the whole story from her point of view, or so I assume. So anyway, to sum it up, I would call this a bad episode of a TV show. I don't think this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I don't think it just utterly destroys the lore of Star Wars. Now, yes, it could, if we learn more, it could really delve into things that really muck it up, in my opinion. But as it is presented right now, we don't have any concrete evidence about what exactly happened. The witches can certainly have their own view of the Force. They can see it as a thread. That does not mean they are right about it. That is just how they perceive it, how they want to interpret it, and how they want their followers to believe in it, if you will. Also, we do not know how May and OSHA were made. It could be that, yes, she manipulated the midichlorians, she's super powerful, and now that really calls into question what is the deal with Anakin, and maybe it lessens it, and all that sort of stuff. And if that gets confirmed to be the case, I am sure I will make a video discussing all of that. But for now, we don't have the answers. This was just too vague to really make definitive statements about what is going on. But when we get them, I'm sure I'll be right here talking about them. Well, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of this episode. Do you agree with some of the things I had to say? Do you disagree? Maybe you loved the episode and are intrigued by the mystery and don't care if this may or may not break the lore. So whatever the case may be, take to the comments below, let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.